three people start with the same $10,000 in the same market on the same day. Dana day trades, glued to her screen, buying and selling all day long. Sam swing trades, holding for a few days or weeks, chasing the next move. Ivy buys one index fund, sets it to auto-invest, and basically forgets about it. Ask anyone who ends up richest, and they'll bet on Dana. She's working the hardest, right? Years later, one of them is clearly quietly ahead of the other. 2. And it's the one who barely did anything. Here's why the lazy investor usually wins, and how knowing this can save you years of effort and a real pile of money. Welcome to Grow with Tony. I'm Tony, and today we're settling a fight the internet loves to get wrong. Day trader, swing trader, or index investor, who actually ends up richer? This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Now, let's get into why this even matters. If you spend any time on social media, you've probably seen it. Your feed is full of people making trading look like some kind of cheat code for life. You see the fast money, the screens filled with glowing green numbers, and the captions telling you to quit your job and just trade your way to freedom. It is incredibly exciting. It makes the slow, boring path feel like you're missing out on something huge. But this is where the trap hides. As humans, we naturally assume that more effort equals more reward. In almost every other part of our lives, that is how things work. If you work more hours at your job, you usually make more money. If you study harder for a test, you usually get a better grade. But with investing, it is often exactly backwards. That single misunderstanding, the idea that you have to work hard to make your money grow, quietly costs beginners years of progress and a real pile of cash. So in this video, we are going to line up all three of these styles honestly. We are going to look at the actual scoreboard that most gurus never show you. And I am going to give you a simple way to decide how you should actually invest your money. No hype, no get-rich-quick nonsense, just the truth. To really understand how this works, we need to meet our three players. Let's picture three different people, all starting with that same $10,000. First, we have Dana. Dana is a day trader. Now, day trading is exactly what it sounds like, buying and selling assets within the same single day. Sometimes Dana makes dozens of trades before the closing bell rings. She is trying to profit off tiny price moves that happen over minutes or even seconds. The most important thing to know about Dana's style is that she never even holds a position overnight. She starts her day with a clean slate and ends it the same way, hoping that those small wins added up to a big win for the day. Then we have Sam. Sam is a swing trader. Instead of focusing on minutes or hours, Sam looks at days and weeks. This is called swing trading because Sam is trying to catch a swing in the price. He waits for a stock to dip, buys it, and then hopes to sell it a few days or a few weeks later when the price swings back up. Sam holds his positions longer than Dana does, but he is still jumping in and out of the market constantly, trying to time the peaks and the valleys. Finally, we have Ivy. Ivy is an index investor. Now, index investing is a completely different beast. Instead of trying to pick a single winning stock, Ivy buys a fund that owns the whole market at once. A great example of this is an S&P 500 fund. When Ivy puts her money here, she is buying a slice of around 500 of the biggest US companies all in one purchase. Ivy isn't hunting for a needle in a haystack, she just buys the whole haystack. Once she sets up her account and turns on auto-invest, she basically forgets about it for years. Now, if you look at these three, you might think the difference is just about how much time they spend working. But that's not it. The real difference is what each person is actually betting on. Dana and Sam are betting that they can outtime and outguess everyone else in the market, over and over again, for years. They are betting that their intuition or their charts are better than the collective knowledge of millions of other people. Ivy, on the other hand, is making one quiet, simple bet. She is betting that the whole market will drift upward over long stretches of time. And historically, that is exactly what has happened. Now, this is where things get interesting. Let's look at the scoreboard that nobody ever shows you on TikTok or Instagram. This is the part the trading gurus always seem to skip. We don't have to guess if trading works because we actually have decades of hard data on people who trade for a living. I'm not talking about amateurs. I'm talking about professional fund managers. These are people with entire research teams. incredibly expensive data terminals that cost thousands of dollars a month, and advanced economics degrees. Their entire full-time job, every single hour of their day, is to beat the market. There is something called the SPIVA scorecard, which is published by S&P Dow Jones Indices. These are literally the people who run the S&P 500, so they have the best data possible. And the results are shocking. According to SPIVA, over a 10-year stretch, roughly 80% or more of these professional active funds failed to beat the plain S&P 500 index. Think about that. 80% or more of the pros, with all their tools and degrees, couldn't beat a fund that just buys everything and sits there doing nothing. And it gets even worse the longer you look. If you stretch that time frame out to 15 years, the results are even more lopsided. Almost none of those professional funds beat the index over 15 years. I want you to really sit with that for a second. The absolute best in the business, working full-time with every possible advantage, and around 4 out of 5 of them can't beat a simple index fund. So, when someone on your phone tells you that he can do it from his couch between sips of coffee, the odds are screaming in the opposite direction. Now, to be fair, this doesn't mean that nobody ever wins a single trade. It doesn't mean you can't get lucky for a few months or even a year. Luck is a powerful thing in the short term, but it means that beating the market consistently, after you account for all the costs, year after year, is one of the hardest things in all of finance. The reality is that the people most likely to lose their money are the ones trading the most often. So, why does this happen? Why does the active trader usually lose to the boring investor? It comes down to what I call the 4 hidden taxes on being active. These aren't always taxes you pay to the government, but they are costs that leak out of your account and drag down your returns. The first leak is trading costs and the spread. Every single time you buy or sell a stock, you are paying a small toll. Even if your broker says they have 0 commissions, you are still paying through something called the bid-ask spread. The spread is just the tiny gap between the price someone is willing to pay to buy a stock and the price someone is willing to sell it for. On one single trade, it's a tiny amount and it feels like nothing. But if you are like Dana and you day trade hundreds or thousands of times a year, those little tolls stack up. It's like driving a car and stopping at a toll booth every single mile. By the end of the trip, you've spent a huge amount of money just to get to the same destination. Ivy, the index investor, pays that toll basically once when she starts, and then she's done. The second leak is the actual tax trap, and this one is absolutely brutal. This is where the IRS comes into play. When you sell an investment, you have to pay capital gains tax on the profit. But the rate you pay depends on how long you held the asset. If you sell something you've held for 1 year or less, the profit is called a short-term capital gain. The IRS taxes short-term gains as ordinary income, which means they are taxed at the same rate as your regular paycheck. Depending on how much you earn, that tax rate can run as high as 37%. Now compare that to Ivy. If you hold an investment for more than 1 year, it becomes a long-term capital gain. Long-term gains are taxed at a much friendlier rate, either 0, 15, or 20%. Think about what this means for Dana and Sam. They are essentially running a machine that turns low-taxed long-term gains into high-taxed short-term ones. Every time they lock in a profit after a few days or weeks, they are handing a massive chunk of that win over to the government. Ivy, by holding for years, pushes her tax bill far into the future. Not only does she get to keep more of her money working for her right now, but when she finally does sell, she pays that lower long-term rate. The difference in the final amount of money in your pocket can be staggering over a decade. The third leak is the behavior gap. This is the psychological cost. You have to remember that you are a human being, and humans are not wired for the stock market. The more decisions you have to make, the more chances you give fear and greed to sneak in and ruin your plan. This is where most traders fail. They experience FOMO, or the fear of missing out, and they buy a stock after it has already shot up because everyone else is talking about it. Then, when the market dips, panic sets in and they sell at the bottom just to stop the pain. Every single extra trade is another open door for your emotions to cost you money. Dana and Sam have to make these decisions every day. Ivy made one decision to buy the index, and then she shut the door. She doesn't have to fight her own brain every morning. And finally, The fourth leak is time and stress. We often forget to count our time as a cost. Dana's whole job is staring at charts, reading news feeds, and stressing over every tick of the price. Even if she manages to break even on her trades, she has paid for that result with her attention, her sleep, and her stress. Time is the one thing you genuinely cannot buy back. While Dana is glued to her screen, Ivy is spending that same time living her actual life, spending time with her family, or focusing on her career. When you add all of this up, you start to see why the boring path quietly wins. Ivy has a set of stacked, unfair advantages that Dana and Sam just can't beat. First, because she owns a slice of the entire market, she never has to be right about any single company or any single day. If one company in the S&P 500 goes bankrupt, it barely affects her because she has 499 others balancing it out. Second, her costs are tiny. She doesn't have 1,000 toll booths to pay. She pays the spread once and lets it ride. Third, she is incredibly tax efficient. By avoiding short-term trades, she keeps the government's hands out of her pockets for as long as possible and eventually pays a much lower rate. Fourth, she has removed the emotion from the equation. By removing the need to make daily decisions, she has removed the possibility of making a panic-driven mistake. But her biggest advantage of all is this: she lets compounding run completely uninterrupted. Compounding is when your earnings start earning their own earnings. It is the most powerful force in finance, but it only works if you leave it alone. Every single time a trader like Dana or Sam sells a position to take a profit, they are hitting the pause button on their compounding. They take the money out, they pay a slice to the broker in fees, they pay a huge slice to the IRS in short-term taxes, and then they try to start the process all over again with whatever is left. Ivy never hits the pause button. Her money keeps snowballing on top of itself year after year, without any interruptions. None of this is exciting. There is no rush of adrenaline, no flashing lights, and no big green screenshot to post online to show everyone how smart you are. But quietly, the math stacks higher and higher in her favor. And that is exactly why she pulls ahead. So, to pay off that question from the beginning, the lazy investor was never actually lazy. She was just smart enough to let time and simple math do the heavy lifting, while Dana and Sam exhausted themselves fighting the current. Now, I want to be clear about something. I am not saying that trading is evil or that you should never do it. I just want you to have a healthy framework for how to think about it. A simple way to look at it is this, and again, this is not financial advice, but a way to structure your thinking. Trading should be the tiny side dish, never the main meal. A reasonable approach that a lot of successful people use is to keep the core of their money, the part that your actual future, your retirement, and your security depend on, in boring, broad index funds that you hold for years. This is your foundation. Now, if you genuinely enjoy the process of trading, if you find the charts interesting and you like the game of it, that's fine. But you should cap that activity at a small slice of your portfolio. Use money that you could afford to lose completely without it changing your life. Treat that slice as entertainment, like a hobby or a trip to a casino, not as your retirement plan. Before you ever put real money into a trading strategy, I want you to run 3 honest checks. First, ask yourself, is my core already invested and growing on autopilot? If you haven't built your foundation in index funds yet, you have no business gambling with the rest. Second, am I only using money I can truly afford to lose? If losing this money means you can't pay rent or you have to dip into your emergency fund, you are trading with desperation. And desperation always leads to bad decisions. Third, and most importantly, am I actually tracking my real results? I mean your real results after fees and after taxes, and comparing them honestly to what you would have made if you had just held the index. Most people who actually run that third check honestly and mathematically end up quietly moving more of their money into the boring index because they realize they've been working hard just to underperform. So, if you want to start moving toward the path that actually builds wealth, here are 3 actionable things you can do today. Step 1 is to set up an automatic monthly investment into one broad index fund. I'm talking about the whole market kind, like an S&P 500 fund. Set it to happen automatically from your bank account to your brokerage. This way, you are buying steadily every month, regardless of whether the market is up or down, and you're doing it without having to think about it. You are removing the decision-making process entirely. Step 2 is for those of you who are already trading. I want you to go back through your records for the past year, add up your real returns, subtract every single fee you paid, and subtract the taxes you owe on those short-term gains. Then, look at what a simple index fund returned in that same period. Compare the two numbers honestly. Let the actual math tell you the truth about whether your effort is actually paying off. Step 3 is to set a hard cap on your fund trading. Decide on a small percentage of your portfolio, maybe 5 or 10%, and that is your playground. That is the money you use to try and pick the next big stock or swing a trade. Everything else stays in the boring, growing bucket. The bottom line here is that the goal of investing was never to look busy or to look impressive to other people. The goal is to actually end up richer. And as we have seen from the data, the person who ends up richer is usually the one who stopped trying to outsmart the market and instead decided to own the market. If this video saved you from chasing the trading hype and helped you see the value in the boring path, do me a favor and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Be honest, are you Team Day Trader, Team Swing, or are you joining Team Boring Index? I read the comments, so let me know where you stand. Whatever you choose, just remember that the quiet, boring path is usually the one that wins. See you in the next one.